Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if it is your first time here. My name is Jess. Today's video is going to be my July wrap up, and I had a little bit of a mixed reading month in July. So as always, I'm going to talk to you about the books in the order that I read them. Without further ado, let's jump straight in. So the first book that I read in July was Exciting Times by Nisha Dolan. This is contemporary fiction about a woman called Ava who leaves her home in Ireland to take a poorly paid job teaching English in Hong Kong, and whilst she's out there she strikes up a relationship with a wealthy banker called Julian and also with a solicitor called Edith. And although Ava views her relationship with Julian as quite questionable, she ends up living in his flat and essentially finds herself in a love triangle with herself, Julian and Edith. Honestly, I didn't get this book. Ava as our main character is quite self-deprecating and negative in a way that I just didn't understand, and although she views her relationship with Julian as quite questionable, I just didn't get it. I didn't see it. She is very negative towards him and I didn't really feel like he was doing anything wrong, which baffled me for quite a long time. The book is described as sharp and witty, and again I just didn't get that vibe from it. Ava herself she almost comes across as quite self-obsessed and entitled, as though she deserves a better life than she has, but she doesn't actually want to do anything to gain herself a better life. And then when the opportunity comes along through Julian, she is resentful of Julian whilst still taking advantage of the things that he offers. And yeah, I don't know if it's an age thing, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but there was just something that I don't think I was getting about the book and about the characters, and ultimately I just was baffled for most of the time that I was reading it. So I gave it 2 stars. The other thing that I didn't enjoy, actually, before I explain my rating, was the fact that the book was set in Hong Kong, but it could literally have been set in any city for the level of culture that we get to explore. And actually, as a reader, we find out more about Ireland than we do about the city of Hong Kong and the culture. It was just very off for me. Definitely a swing and a miss. I gave it 2 stars because occasionally there were glimpses, I think, of what the author was striving for, or what I think the author was striving to convey, but very much a book that I didn't get. As I say, a swing and a miss, sadly. It just wasn't for me. Then I read Here is the Beehive by Sarah Crossan. This again is contemporary fiction. It was a proof that I requested from NetGalley, and when I requested it from NetGalley I didn't realise that it was told in verse, which is something that's fairly new for me. I don't read a lot of books that are written in verse. It's certainly not something that I would automatically reach for, so a very interesting exploration into that type of writing style. So this is the story of Anna, who is a solicitor, and Anna basically finds out that the man she has been having an affair with for the last 3 years has died suddenly when his wife, Rebecca, the widow, calls Anna and asks her to deal with the probate. And there is a definite sinister edge to the story as we watch Anna begin to insert herself into the life of Rebecca, and it's kind of there's kind of this tension of how far is this actually going to go. It was a very quick read. I certainly enjoyed it. As I say, it's not a writing style that I'm massively familiar with. There's a very real and raw sense conveyed through the writing, and to say that I read it in 2 sittings and it's a very, very quick read, it doesn't half pack a punch. So I very much enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It has certainly piqued my interest as well for finding more books written in verse and not necessarily dismissing them, because I don't think that they are for me. So yeah, just a very interesting exploration about the secrets that we keep told through verse. So yeah, a 3.5 star read. Then I finished Sweet Little Lies by Kaz Freer. This was actually an audiobook that I listened to, and it is the second one in the Kat Kinsella series. I don't know if you will remember that I actually accidentally listened to the second one, and then I wanted to go back and start the series from the beginning basically, so I listened to the first one. So we are following the story of DC Kat Kinsella. These are mystery thrillers, and in this particular book, basically DC Kat Kinsella has believed since she was 6 years old that her father was involved in the disappearance of an Irish teenager. When said missing person turns up murdered, having been living under a new name in London, and Kat's team are assigned to find out what has gone on, things begin to get a little bit messy. I didn't enjoy this as much as I enjoyed Stone Cold Heart, which is the second one, but I did like it for the same reasons that I liked the second one, in that Kat Kinsella is a very sharp and dry character, and she just really resonates with me as a reader. I did think that this one, had I read this one first as the debut, I probably would have been a little bit underwhelmed, but I can definitely see, having read the second one, how Kaz Freer's writing is developing and how the characters are developing and all that kind of thing. So I'm very much looking forward to jumping into the third one. Now obviously, with it being a mystery thriller, I can't say too much because it's better going into these things not knowing, and I certainly didn't manage to work out exactly what was going on, which again I enjoyed, because yeah, it's always a little bit disappointing when you realise quite early on what's happening, but right up until the end I hadn't quite got a grasp on what was going on. So yeah, just a solid 3-star read for me. Definitely would recommend them if you're looking for a new mystery thriller detective series. I think they certainly tick a lot of the boxes. Then I read the book of Two Ways by Jodi Picoult. Again, this was a proof that I had requested from NetGalley, and honestly I am so disappointed to have to review this book in the way that I do. I did not like anything about this book at all. I gave it 1 star, and I was so disappointed when I got to the end that if minus stars existed I would probably have given it minus stars. It just, I was absolutely gutted that I didn't enjoy it. I am a huge Jodi Picoult fan. I love the way that she takes potentially difficult topics and shines the spotlight on them, and as a reader you are forced to examine preconceived notions that you might have, and sometimes it makes you change your mind and sometimes it doesn't, but she just is not afraid to kind of throw these difficult topics out there and into the open for discussion. And the book of Two Ways, the hard topic that she is looking at is death. So we have our main character Dawn, who is working as a death doula, which basically means that she is with people at the end of their lives and she helps them to fulfill final wishes, and she comes alongside the families and that kind of thing. But Dawn, previously, before she became a death doula, was hoping to become an Egyptologist. So we're following 2 timelines. One timeline where Dawn has gone back to the site in Egypt where she left and is hoping to kind of reignite her career as an Egyptologist. And then another timeline where she is with her husband and her daughter and she is working as a death doula. And these 2 timelines come together very abruptly as the story moves forward. There was just something off about the narrative for me. I very nearly went to university to study archaeology. I have a real passion and interest in the ancient world, but even I was bored to tears by this story, by that storyline. It was just a whole load of info dumping, Honestly, if I'd had to read the words "the ancient Egyptians believed" one more time, I think my eyeballs would have popped out of my head and scuttled across the floor. It just was relentless with the info dumping, and it didn't really flow with the narrative. On top of that, you have Dawn's husband Brian, who is a physicist, and he would just regularly go off onto technical tangents about alternate universes in a way that was just baffling. And then you had Dawn, who was just obsessed with the hierarchical and historical and religious history of Egypt, but they just didn't sit together, and it was just really quite jarring. And then on top of that, you had this romance between a figure from Dawn's past that was just really unbelievable and just didn't work for me. I just didn't like any element of the book whatsoever. It was like Jodi Picoult had been on a course about ancient Egypt, and she wanted to show off all the information that she knew, but it didn't actually like fit with the story that she was telling. She didn't blend it into the narrative of the story, and it just was boring, I'm sad to say. I mean, as I say, I am a huge Jodi Picoult fan, but this book was messy, it was boring, I was detached. It just didn't have any of the hallmarks of the things that make me enjoy Jodi Picoult's books, and it's probably come across very, very clearly that I was thoroughly expecting to love it, and I was thoroughly disappointed as a result. So yeah, a 1-star read, another major swing and a miss. Then I read The Silence of the Girls by Pat Barker. You should know by now, if you are not new here, that I love a good Greek mythological retelling, and I was looking forward to this one, which is a retelling of the Iliad from the perspective of Briseis. Briseis is a young woman who is taken from her home when it is conquered and given to our hero Achilles as his war prize. And then there is some kind of disagreement between Achilles and Agamemnon. I really want to say that that is right, and now I can't see it on the back. Briseis is given away, and then she's back, and there's just a whole to-do, and it's all connected to the siege outside of Troy. I was expecting to enjoy this, and for the most part I did. It's quite dark and gritty. It's very reminiscent of Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller, particularly in the angle that it takes in its retelling. For me, what let this book down was the dialogue. I have since read an article where basically it said that Pat Barker had made a stylistic choice to make the dialogue modern, but for me it was just incredibly jarring and made it feel very inauthentic. As an example, at one point when Briseis has first been captured and she is paraded in front of the soldiers, one of the Greek soldiers says to another something along the lines of, "Would you look at the knockers on her?" And I was like, hang about, are we now in Carry On Troy? Like, I don't really get that. Yeah, it didn't work for me. It was a really good, solid retelling, apart from the modern dialogue, which actually for me as the reader removed me from the narrative. And I just, again, it was a book that I thought, I just don't get it. I don't get why you would make that choice to have the dialogue be so progressive and modern, and it, as I say, made it feel very inauthentic. So I only gave this 3.5 stars. I am still on the hunt for a retelling as good as the ones that Madeline Miller has written, and I'm beginning to despair a little bit. It was good, it just wasn't great. By Emma Healy. This was my book club's pick for the month, and actually we were able to have a Q&A with Emma at our end of month discussion, which was very, very interesting and extremely enlightening. So this again is contemporary fiction, had a bit of a month of contemporary fiction. So this is about Jen, whose 15-year-old daughter Lana goes missing when Jen and Lana go on a retreat to the Peak District, and Lana is missing for 4 days. When she is finally found, she claims that she can't remember anything about where she was or what happened to her. Jen naturally wants to know, she wants answers, she wants to know what happened, she wants to know what went on, and so our story unfolds. This book looks at a whole lot of things, but predominantly it looks at mental health, it looks at mother-daughter relationships, missing children, and obviously ultimately the mystery of what has happened to Lana. One of the interesting things about this writing style is that it's quite erratic and chaotic, which means that for me I never really had a full grasp of what was going on, what direction we were going in, what actually had happened to Lana. It very much felt like it was just outside of my grasp, and if I could just keep going then the answers would be revealed. So it made the reading of it very quick. It was very fast paced. It was a definite page turner. There is a real sense of something other about the book, and there is a real tension to it, and you genuinely don't know if it's going to go in kind of a magical realism direction or if it's going to be something really, there's going to be this really logical explanation to what has happened to Lana, and it really does keep you guessing pretty much until the end. So yeah, just a very quick, entertaining read, and I would highly recommend it. And the final book that I picked up definitely redeemed my reading month. Obviously I hadn't had a fantastic reading month up until this point, and then I picked up Law by Alexandra Bracken, and oh my goodness me, I loved this book. So this is urban fantasy, and it is the story of the Aegon. So every 7 years 9 Greek gods are forced to walk the earth as mortals as punishment for a past rebellion, and they are hunted by the descendants of ancient bloodlines who want to kill the Greek gods and take their divine power and immortality. And we are following our main character Law, who is the last mortal descendant in the house of Perseus, and after her family are brutally murdered she tries to distance herself from the Aegon until she is pulled back in by her childhood friend Castor, who she previously believed was dead, and one of the few original remaining Greek gods, Athena. And our story kind of unfolds from there. Honestly, I enjoyed everything about this book. It is fast paced, it's gritty, it's entertaining, it's unique. I just thoroughly loved it. I loved the blend of the old with the Greek gods with the more present day setting of New York. I just thought that it was really good. I gave it 4.5 stars, and my main criticism of it was that you hit the ground running so much that you kind of have to pick up the storyline as you go along, and there are a lot of characters and the actual rules of the world, so how it works with the Greek gods coming down and then the new gods ascending and who the ancient bloodlines are and all that kind of thing. It's just very much thrown at you, and you have to piece it together as you go along, whilst also reading this incredibly fast-paced plot. And I found that quite confusing. And then I got to the end and I was thinking to myself, a list of characters would have been really helpful. And then I got to the end and it was there, and I was just like, why would you not put your cast of characters at the beginning? Because obviously I'm not going to flick to the end of the book in case I see something that spoils it, but having this at the start would have been really helpful, because I would have had something to flick to try and understand what I was reading, and that would have made it 5 stars. But as it stands, very entertaining if you like this kind of thing. Obviously it's not perfect, because what book is, but yeah, it just, obviously it was the right time for me to pick it up because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm so pleased that I read it. I pretty much loved everything about it. So there you go, they are the books that I read in the month of July. As I said before, I talked about Law. It was not a great reading month for me, a little bit underwhelming for some of the books, and just some real disappointments there for me, which is such a shame because I've had incredibly high hopes for a number of them. But let's hope that August is slightly better. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to leave me a comment. Let me know what your favourite book was in the month of July. I always love to get reading recommendations from you guys. Give me the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. I hope that you are all keeping safe and well. Take care, and I'll see you soon.